Hello and welcome to Module 6 of Climate Change, the Fight of Our Lives from Emergency to Solutions. The title of this module is Mitigation and Adaptation, and the content will be delivered to you by Rob Delard from World Climate School and Humaira Iqbal from SDGs Academy, Pakistan.
Welcome to this module of the World Climate School course on climate change today. The title is Climate Change Reversal, Mitigation and Adaptation Towards Solutions. My name is Rob Delard. I live in Brazil, where I work on forest protection, reforestation and rewilding. I am a member of the Extinction Rebellion, especially focusing on saving the Amazon forest. I am your teacher today. Thank you for being part of this course. So the question is, what kind of world do we really need? And what you see here before you is the famous Maslow pyramid. It describes the hierarchy of human needs. You first need to make sure your physiological needs are taken care of, like air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, etc. Before you can come to the second range of needs: personal safety, health, work, property. Once those are met, we can work on friendship, caring for the family, and above that you'll see that respect, recognition, status, and at the top of the pyramid, the desire to self-actualize, like in wisdom and happiness, are all hierarchical needs. Why are we looking at that here? Because not only does climate change challenge our physiological and safety needs, it also points at what the world could look like if everybody would be able to develop themselves to their fullest. Since we need to do so much to overhaul our society to make it resilient for the future, we could try to build it as a fortification, but that would actually increase conflict, because we would separate ourselves from the ones who need different needs. You can never be fully happy if you see other humans or creatures suffering. We are all connected, so we need a happy world to be happy ourselves. Since we are redesigning the way we live, why not go for the best possible of worlds? Worlds where all creatures' needs are met, where everyone is safe, loved, and respected, and where wisdom and happiness is reigning. So, with the challenge of climate change threatening our lives and livelihoods in the near future, we can ask ourselves the question, what world do we need? But maybe we can ask ourselves a better question, which is, what world do we want? Because actually the world around us was designed by us already to a large extent. Maybe it went a little bit on accident, but in as much as we can look around, all buildings, the way we are organized, cities, etc., food production, all were designed by us. So maybe we can look at the design of the world from a new perspective, the world that we want, not just one aspect of it, but the totality of it. But when we're looking at redesigning our world, we first have to keep in mind that the reason why we're in a mess is because we have not been able to understand that we are actually on a limited planet with limited resources. So the first step maybe we need to do is try to construct a life with more simplicity, not based on consumption and having, but based on happiness and being. Why not make our sense of purpose to make this world a better place, more beautiful place, worth living for our children and generations to come? An aim that really will give us pride and joy. Actually, I think we should see this planet as a place that is not ours, but that we are borrowing from future generations. And we should leave it better than the way we found it. So it's very important that we create a world where people and planet, nature, and our livelihoods, our economy, are in sync with each other and work together in a way that is sustainable. So why not aim at a world where basic needs are secured for everyone, and a world where basic needs, not only like food and water and clean air, but also education and healthcare, are free? Is that so difficult to realize? I don't think so. And why don't we also create a world where we enjoy the song of a bird instead of the harsh sound of a truck belching smoke when passing us by with so much stuff? We need to understand that the world we are living in was created by us, so now we need to redesign it. Let us work at making a vision, creating a vision of a more beautiful world, because that is possible and that is the world I think we want. But before we start thinking about how to redesign a world in a way we want, we first and foremost need to remind ourselves that we are in a climate emergency. A tsunami of suffering is coming at us in the decades ahead of us if we do not reverse the damage. So first of all, we need to stop burning fossil fuels worldwide and even draw down CO2 from our atmosphere that's already overburdened and is already heating up our planet too much. But what a lovely job it would be to revive nature, for instance, or to revitalize and clean up our beautiful rivers. In the literature about climate change, we see the terms mitigation, adaptation, and resilience all the time. So let's take a look at what that means. Mitigation is the effort to soften the blow, to reduce the pace of climate change and the destruction of nature. Adaptation is doing the preparations for dealing with this hotter world, for more flooding, more drought, for sea level rise, for melting glaciers, the effects of climate change. And all these actions together, mitigation and adaptation, will make us more resilient as a society to the onslaught of our world getting more chaotic due to climate change and other crises that we're dealing with. But the most important element to resilience is actually community, being together, working together, trusting each other, and all working for this immensely important goal of making a world, creating a world that is more beautiful and stronger and will give all of us a safe and prosperous life. So if mitigation and adaptation is the challenge ahead of us, what does that mean in practice? And here we come to this amazing project called Drawdown. If we want to create a livable world, we need action on all fronts with everybody. In fact, the transition to a green economy will create millions of jobs. Here in this picture, you see Project Drawdown with 80 solutions. And you can look at the whole list of them. I just mentioned a few: farmland restoration, wind turbines, clean cooking stove, nuclear power, managed grazing, etc. We can go on and on. And Drawdown is the largest project of its kind worldwide, giving all the solutions to make this immense change. When fully implemented, the solutions mentioned in this chart will draw down more than 1,000 gigatons of CO2 at a cost of almost $30 trillion, but with saving of almost $75 trillion over the decades to come. Just to give you a perspective, the world's GDP, global GDP, is around $75 trillion. And you can see that both the investments and the savings needed to do all this mitigation and adaptation are enormous. The transition of our society will be the largest economic project ever in the history of humanity. So we propose that after this lecture you will look carefully at the work done in this gigantic plan for change. Drawdown is the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. The book was published in 2017 by Paul Hawken and gives a quantified range of solutions to mitigate the effects of climate change. It describes solutions arranged in order by broad categories like energy, food, women and girls, buildings and cities, land use, transport, materials, and other possibilities. The book provides a list of by now 100 potential solutions and ranks them by the potential amount of greenhouse gases that each would cut. Paul Hawkins has been an important activist, a sustainable entrepreneur, a writer and a speaker, and he is a crucial person in the battle for climate change. His book is a major tool to help us make the great transition, which will happen whether we like it or not. For us, it simply means that we can be part of the design of the solution instead of being victims of its consequences. So redesigning our world in a way that we can live with climate change and reverse the effects of it is basically an enormous to-do list, which gives we give jobs to everyone. And the focus can be on many aspects of it. One that is mentioned quite often, for instance, is that educating girls to a higher level of schooling would mean they would have less children, and in the end, that would mean that the population would grow slower, which is one of the most important challenges that we have. But other big focuses can be on, of course, reducing greenhouse gases and installing renewable energy, the huge importance of food and water, restoring nature and forests. Very important is the redesigning our cities to become climate smart, and also to improve the rural communities for people to live there better and to be part of the environment more and more, and to know how to grow crops in this changing world. And of course, what is important is that we need a circular economy, because we need to consume less and use less resources to produce and consume the things that we need. Well, we can go through this list of solutions and just pick out any one that you would like, whether it's creating airplanes that don't belch so much CO2, or increasing the efficacy of farmland irrigation, etc., etc. There are too many possibilities, and it's very important to understand that we need everyone to make this big change. In order to understand where we are, there's another concept that I'd like to introduce here, which is called the concept of feedback loops. Feedback loops are basically systems that reinforce themselves and the situations can get out of hand. This is the simplest example of a feedback loop of how situations can deteriorate because they are already deteriorating. Once you have a stampede of cattle running, it panics the others that start running too, which panics more of them, and they start running too. This is more or less what is happening right now with the climate. More heat brings more drought, which brings more crop damage, which raises food prices, which brings unrest to the population, which disturbs supply chains, which hampers farmers to grow more crops, which increases food prices, and on and on and on. One of the things that we need to do is to cut the feedback loops that are already happening in our systems. The way we, for instance, overuse nature, the way we abuse water, the way we pollute our rivers. They are increasingly having a detrimental effect to the way we live. Apart from cutting down greenhouse gas emissions, perhaps the most important feedback loop that is deteriorating situations right now is that of the water cycle. And especially, for instance, in the case of Pakistan, we need a revolution dealing with water. We all know that water cools and is vital for all life, and water is crucial for food security. And the funny thing is, there's actually enough water, there's just not enough management of it, which means increasing droughts, increasing floods, increasing challenges to food production. And the very simple way we can deal with this is managing the water better. In general, it means wetting the land better with the water that is available, wetting the soils, refilling the aquifers better, growing more vegetation, which at least for 50% are water, letting more water stay in rivers, ponds and lakes. Imagine that in Pakistan only 10% of precipitation and river water is actually used to in agriculture, in cities, etc. And even that 10% is used very badly. Just increasing the efficiency of irrigation in agriculture would give enormous amounts of extra water that can be used for other purposes. A great example is the city of Chennai in South India, where there was a lot of trouble with getting enough drinking water to people, and also quite often the city flooded after cloudbursts, especially during monsoon. The city ordered mandatory water catchment on all roofs, and after that was implemented, not only did the drinking water situation improve dramatically, it also decreased flash floods and flooded streets. It helped greening the city, and it helped even in the fight against heat, because the city was cooling off because of all the quantities of water that were kept, which meant less pressure on the electric grid, because the air conditioners were not working that hard, and because of that there were less power cuts. It is a beautiful example of how feedback loops deteriorating the situation can be stopped with relatively simple measures. Another great example of how we can improve both our well-being, protect our environment and our food production is bringing back degraded landscapes to life. It is one of the best ways to protect us from climate change. When we store more water on land in its soils, in small ponds, in vegetation and aquifers, it brings back more birds who help seed plants. It helps water sources to run longer. It helps store water and avoids flash floods. It helps food production and it cools heat waves. And it slows down droughts. Just covering bare soil with vegetation is one of the best things we can do for our future. Bringing back ecological balance and increased quality of life of people and animals living in that area, including opportunities for wild animals and birds to live, are all elements of a complex way to make the whole area, the whole ecology of an area more resilient. Deforested areas and dried out abandoned lands, when brought back to life, have a very positive effect on everything. Just increasing the soil moisture in an area can decrease heat peaks with several degrees. Combined with the cooling effects of shading trees, you can see how we can hold off the heat by restoring nature, while the world works to lower atmospheric CO2. In fact, that is exactly what more vegetation does, lowering atmospheric CO2 while cooling the heating lands. So you see how restoring nature is working in all directions in a better way to improve our situation. The last concept I want to introduce during this presentation is the concept of a circular economy. In nature, nothing gets wasted. Everything is reused in the cycle of life. We humans can learn a lot from nature because now we are polluting our air. We are bringing respiration problems to the children and elderly because of this pollution. We are polluting our water, so it's too dirty for us to drink or even wash in. We throw away our garbage on big piles where they are poisonous stains in the landscape, polluting groundwater. It does not have to be this way. We can reorganize ourselves to make sure that what nature does, we can do as well. First of all, we need to think with everything we purchase, do I really need it? It's called refuse if we don't need it. It applies already to packaging of our goods. So first we need to diminish our consumption. And then we have to see if we can reuse things. For instance, it's not difficult to make a washing machine that works for decades. Perhaps with some small maintenance and a repair underway during this time. But current machines work only for 5 to 10 years and then need to be replaced. We can produce laws that things should be made in such a way that we can use them longer. And in the end, the material gets recycled. Waste becomes in fact a valuable commodity for the next round of production. So changing our economy from a linear one to a circular economy is vital for the future of a thriving society. So the challenge we are facing is enormous. In fact, it was never greater. We are in a climate and ecological emergency, but we do have the solution. Thousands of them. Once people know we are all in danger and also understand that together we can overcome this gravest of challenges, a lot of people will be drawn into an overhaul of the way we live, the way we care for each other, the way we care for our Mother Nature, our beautiful planet, and all the amazing creatures we share this wonderful world with. Climate change is threatening the lives of you and your loved ones, but it is also the best opportunity ever to create a more happy world. Together with our human family, if we all join our hearts, minds, and hands, we can not only avoid a tsunami of suffering and death, but we'll get a much better world in return for us and for future generations. So, smile. It's not only necessary to protect our lives, it will also be the most wonderful project we could ever be engaged in. Thank you.
And now over to Humaira Iqbal.
I'm Humaira Iqbal. I am working full-time in dairy beef and small ruminants projects. These projects are implemented in the University of Veterinary and Animal Sciences, Lahore, and these are supported by Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research. I am first livestock researcher who went to Antarctica along with 112 women in STEM across the world to understand climate change through Homeward Bound program. Today's topic are climate change action and solutions to those problems. In other courses, we have described that how Pakistan is vulnerable to climate change and what are the impacts of drought on overall agriculture and farming community and the people. So I will start my course for you today with my slides. These are our topics: Climate Change Action Plan and Introduction to Solutions in Pakistan. A National Action Plan on Climate Change. Pakistan first took concrete steps towards the development of targeting climate change policies in 2008, when the Planning Commission established the Task Force on Climate Change. It was also to identify and making recommendation to ensure security of country's water, energy, food resources, strengthening existing institutional capacities, and enhance awareness and understanding of climate change. The final report actually was developed in 2010, completed in 2012, while this is launched in 2013. So the National Climate Change Policy provides a framework for addressing the issues that Pakistan faces or will face in future due to changing climate. Climate change is a reality. We need to understand this thing, especially. It is happening and posing adverse impact globally as well as on Pakistan. Now the policy is being evaluated, but this is important that it is an effective institutional framework to mainstream climate change concerns into overall national planning and to promote climate compatible development with clear sets of roles and responsibilities at the federal and provincial level. Main components of the policy is important. Whenever you will deliver some lectures to your students, then you must give them the overview that why this is important actually. According to Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change IPCC 5th Assessment Report, humans are responsible for this unsustainable situation. The evidences are shown, like you observe that day by day temperature is rising, the change in the rainfall, snowfall, while melting of glacier are resulting the high level of our sea level. And these all are the evidences which we can observe even today. This policy has 10 major goals and objectives, which revolves around to ensure the climate change is mainstreamed in the economically and socially vulnerable sector of the economy to steer Pakistan towards a resilient development, a state of resilient development. These objectives are now being evaluated in different reports, and some are cope up with the main goal, and some are really need to be addressed the problems and more need clarification on these goals. So we will discuss these evaluations in our other program, but here we need to understand what are the main crux or main goal of this climate change action plan. Climate action plan actually lays out the institutional and policy structure, including specific policy proposal or planning processes that a state will use to develop and implement a climate mitigation strategy. We need to address and consider the following points whenever we evaluate or prepare our action plan for specifically this climate change. Regional and local climate risks and vulnerabilities, which we have already discussed in our other course. Baseline greenhouse gas emissions, goals and targets, alternative policy options, identification and screening of mitigation actions, forecast impacts of mitigation actions, recommendations and strategy for implementation. So Pakistan Action Plan mainly have three main components. We need to consider those as well: climate finance readiness, the capacity of countries to plan for, assess, deliver, monitor, and report on climate finance at national and international level, in line with national development priorities and sustainable development goals. So the vulnerability initiative are contributing to low carbon emissions. Collaborative work should be promoted to reduce carbon footprint, like the electricity sector and reduce deforestation. Such kind of initiative should be supported in a collaborative work. The resilience is, as a context of climate change, make a society to enhance the ability to absorb the climate shock and enable them to transform more resistance to the future impact of climate change. Some solutions to reduce the climate impacts, we need to take very simple and smaller steps. Reduce your carbon footprint is very much important. First, we need to understand what are the carbon footprints. Your carbon footprint is the amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere as a consequence of an individual's, communities, and organizations' activities. This is from the amount of time you spend in a car to the amount of electricity you use, how much you air travel, and to every single product you consume is actually inculcating into the carbon footprints. You must understand and adopt these 3 R's into your daily routine, like recycle, reuse, and reduce. Recycle paper, reuse all plastics, and generally reduce consumption of certain items you don't need. If you just can imagine that a single plastic bottle may take up to 400 years to decompose. And that's why we need to reuse such small things. Waste not, want not. If you use a resource efficiently and carefully, you will never be in dire need of that resource again. Paper, water, electricity, gas, all the resources we take for granted actually. If you observe, sometimes anyone leave an unnecessary light running, which consume a vast amount of water in hydropower plants, and burning fossil fuels needed to keep the light running. This wastage adds to the circular debt into our economy, so we need to be more careful about that. The third is compost, and compost. To combat climate change, it would be helpful to separate organic waste from non-organic. Nature is self-sustaining system. To create balance between the biological, nutrient, water cycle with community dynamics. You need to ensure that all organic material from your house must go into the soil. That is, all leftover peels of fruits, vegetables, and all the kitchen items which are degradable, so should be go into your backyard soil. For this will improve the fertility of soil as well. The last important component is climate communication. The Today's course is the same sequence of that climate communication. We need to support such type of programs where climate awareness is given on the table. The fifth main solution is plant a tree. All carbon in the atmosphere is sucked by a plant. It is the roots of plants that ensure that composting process continues. To ensure healthy and efficient composting, we need to greater vegetation. This means curbing all forms of deforestation, even urban and natural as well. Thus, soil and vegetation together act as carbon sinks, meaning all carbon from the atmosphere is sucked in and restored to the where it belongs. So the fifth most important component is climate communication, and this course is actually the series of this fifth component. Like, have a conversation with your friend, family, and those who work in your homes. Spread facts about articles, which highlights that how climate change occurs, how it is happening, how it is adversely affecting many people around the world. Educate on the steps you can take, and overall set up an example by taking these easy steps yourself first. Don't forget to support programs that are working towards climate change. So I'm hopefully you have enjoyed today's session, because the solution part is more relevant to yourself. It is more relevant the actions you will take on. So I will end up today's course now with the thanks that you will learn few things and will educate your next one. Thank you.
We have now reached the end of Module 6, Mitigation and Adaptation. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I also hope you become inspired to learn more. There will be also this week some homework. Please do what you're asked to do in the description below this video. Thank you, and see you next time.